This is Gemara Avodah Zarah Daf Tes Vav, and we're holding on Yud Dalid Amid Beis at the Mishnah on the bottom of the Amid. Teaches the Mishnah Makoim Shenagu Limkar Behima Dako Lakum. And again, continuing on the theme of that which is allowed and not allowed to be sold, business that could and cannot be done to Goyim in general, not around the time of their holiday, but in general. So says the Mishnah, in a place where the minhag is to sell small livestock to Avodah Zarah, Meichrin, you're allowed to sell to them. Makshanagu shalaylim kar, if the minhag is not to sell to them, ein Meichrin. B'chol makam ein Meichrim lahem behema gasam. But in every place, one cannot sell to them large animals. Agol musyachim shlamim ushvurim. Calves are full, healthy, or maimed. Rav Yehuda matir b'shvura. If the animal has a mum, uben besira matir b'sus. Ben besira allows a sus. So the different items that one is yes or not allowed to sell to goyim in general. Rashi points out, really foreshadowing what we're about to see in the Gemara, that what's a makim that the minhag is to sell. So that's going to be the concern over here, whether the Avodah Zarah, whether the Goyim are chayshed, that they're going to sleep with these animals, bestiality, and that's going to be the crux of these halachis. So we go and we dive right into the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Lemimra, from the first din in the Mishnah, in which everything was tali in, is the minhag to yes, is the minhag to no. So when it's tali in a minhag, says the Gemara, you know what that teaches us? T'isura leka, that there's no proper iser, and rather minhago deika, there's a minhag. Hecha denag iser nohig, hecha denag heter nohig, and therefore it would seem that everything is dependent upon whether they were noyeg the iser. Asks the Gemara, I'll ask you a contradiction. One cannot leave an animal in the inn of Goyim. Why? Because we're worried that the Goyim are going to come and sleep with this animal. So what do we see? We see, it would seem that in general, we are chayshid on Raviyah, and therefore there should be an Isser. And Rashi, similar to what we saw in the previous summit, points out. So what's the Isser on the Yid? Left even loisite mirshal. This guy's a guy. Tibnei noyach nitzvu al Raviyah. One of the Shiva mitzvahs b'nei noyach. Yesterday we learned about Avodah Zarah. Today we are learning about that even Goyim are not allowed to be over Raviyah, they're not allowed to sleep with their animals. So in a place in which we're worried that they will, you're not allowed to even leave your animal there. So asks the Gemara, it seems in the Brisa that there's a proper Isser, and it shouldn't just be totally in the minhag. Amar Rav, 2 lines at the bottom, Makish Atira Limkar, Atira Liyached, Makish Asura Liyached, Asura Limkar. Says Rav, these two Brisas fit with each other. That when did it say you're not allowed to leave the animal alone? When did the Brisa say ein mami shalakum? That's in a place that you're also not allowed to sell to them because you're chayshed. But in a place that you're yes allowed to sell to them, you would also be allowed to be maimed your behema bipundaka shalakum, and we would not be concerned. We turn over to Tezvav Amud Aleph, and says the Gemara, second Torah, that's how we can answer up the Sira. Rav Elazar Aimar comes along, Rav Elazar, and he says, Avim Makim Sha'asur Liyachein Mutter Limkar. Says Rav Elazar, no. What was the kasha? The kasha was that we have a brisa, and the brisa says you're not allowed to be liyached. You can't leave your animal with the goyim. Our Mishnah seem to say that you could. Says Rav Elazar, no. The two are not connected. My taima. Akom chasal behentai shaloi te'akar. A guy is concerned about his animal that it should not become sterile, and therefore he's not going to do such. and therefore to stam leave your animal by the goyim, that we yes have to be concerned about because they don't care about it. However, to sell an animal to them, then we do not have to be worried because they will not be together with the animal, cause it could cause the animal to become sterile and not be able to have children. It says the Gemara of Rav Hadar, even Rav is chayzer. Dam Rav Tachlifa Amar Rav Shila Baravimi Mishmei de Rav Akov Chasal Behemtoi Shaloi Ta'akar. The Goyim are concerned Shaloi Ta'akar, and therefore even Rav is chayzer and says you can sell the animal to Goyim because we do not have to be worried that they will be over in Reviyah, because it could cause the animal le'akar to become sterile. Continues the Gemara, quoting the next case of the Mishnah, 6 lines down. My taima, what is the reason they're not allowed to sell behema gasa? Explains the Gemara, it's true that we're not chayshed for Reviyah, but ma'avid and we're concerned that he's going to work with the animal on Shabbos. Says the Gemara. V'nevad, who cares? Keep it zavna kanye. You sold in the animal. It's his animal, so what does it bother me if the guy goes and works with his own animal on Shabbos? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you what it bothers. Gezerah mishum sheila. We have to be concerned, the Gezerah d'Rabbanan, that the Goyim might borrow an animal or mishum schiros, rent an animal, and therefore we're not even allowed to sell them one. Says the Gemara, sheila kiniyah, vagri kiniyah. What's the problem? If they borrow an animal, if they rent an animal, it's theirs. So nachamo, let them work with it on Shabbos. Elo marami braid Rav Yeva gzer mishum nisyayni. You know what the problem is? The Gzera is because of Nisyayni, testing. What does that mean? Says the Gemara, when you tell an animal, you give them, you see it, they test the animal, whether it walks well, etc. And therefore we have to be concerned you might sell to them excuse me, and the buyer says, let me test the animal, let it walk with a load. What happens is, and the animal will hear its original master's voice, and it's going to be carrying because of him, and the master, the Yid, is happy that it walks. Why is he happy? Because he wants to make the sale. But now it comes Shabbos, and it's an Isser of Mechamer Achabemta. You're causing your animal to work on Shabbos. So fascinating Gzeira. Sometimes we can see the depth of Chazal, that you're not allowed to sell an animal to a guy. Why? Because we're afraid that in a scenario that he's going to work with it on Shabbos. What's the concern? That in a scenario that you're going to go and sell him an animal on Erev Shabbos, and he's in the middle of testing the animal to see is it strong, and you, the Yid, are going to talk and cause the animal to walk, and that's going to be this unique one-time case of an Issa Daraisa. That's why you can't sell an animal to a guy on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Maskiv la Rav Shisha Breid Rav Idi. Uschiras Mikanya. 1 second. We said that if you rent an animal to a guy, we do not have to be worried. Why do you not have to be worried? Because renting the guy is kaineh. Asks the Gemara, but now we learned in the Mishnah. Even in a place in which you're allowed to rent, to lease a house to Goyim, but lebeis dira, excuse me, af in makisha amru lahaschir, loy lebeis dira amru. Why? You shouldn't rent Goyim a place to live, because you're going to put their Avodah Zarah on it. But says the Gemara, 1 second, if you're going to tell me schiras kanya, then I keep my lebeis kamayil. Who cares that they're bringing Avodah Zarah into their house? Lebeisei haiki ayil haiki kamayil lebeisei kamayil. What does it bother me? They're bringing it in to their own house. Answers the Gemara, you're right, but you know why we can't do it? Because he's bringing an idol, we have to be more machmir. The Chsev says the apostle Savi Ta'eva El Beisecha, and therefore it's true that the house is considered his. However, there's this higher level of chumrah that we cannot allow the goyim to rent the house because a high level of chumrah, are then bringing Avodah Zarah into the house. Another kasha. Now we learned in a Mishnah, Yisrael should sachar para mikayin. A yid rents a cow from a kayin yechilena karshini teruma. The yid is allowed to feed it the karshini, the vetch of truma. On the flip side case, a kayin. The kayin is now the owner. He rented it. He has to feed the animal. Still, lo yechlena karshini truma. You should not feed it truma. So says the Gemara, 1 second. Why can't the kohen feed it part of the day? It's his cow. So now we go all the way back to the top of the Amid and give a new teretz. Gezerah misham schiros, ugzeris misham sheila. Ugzera misham nisyayni. Now there's going to be 3 reasons you can't sell an animal to a guy. 3 level of gezeras. You might rent it, you might lease it, you might lend it, or you might test the animal, and that's why we don't let you sell an animal, a behema gasa, to a guy. Ravada shari lizvuni chamra ida disafsura. Rachama allowed a yid to sell a donkey through a broker. If he's going to test it, he doesn't know his voice because the broker, there's a middleman. You're outside his animal, so the middleman does not have to be concerned. And furthermore, says the Gemara, he's not even going to want to rent or lease it. Why? Because it might get a mum, and therefore the middleman is just going to hold on to the animal. That's why there's going to be no concern. Then he can even sell it to a guy. Ravuna sold a cow to a guy, seemingly not like our Mishnah. No, he bought it for shchita, and therefore I don't have to be worried about what he's going to do with the animal. We turn over to Tezvavim and Beis, says the Gemara, Umina Temra, Tamrinan Kayavna. Where do we know to say such a thing? How do you know that you're allowed to say that, oh, it's no problem, because we can assume that he's buying it l'shchita? Explains the Gemara de Tanan, moving over to the second line. A cow that plows, why let it sell it? He's going to plow with your animal in Shvita. Because it could be he's going to eat it. So according to Beisel, we can say the same thing by us. Amar Rabba, says Rabba, 1 second, 4 lines down. You're not mitzaveh, your animal can't work. So it's a closer level, there should be more of a concern. When it comes to a field, then one does have a commandment to make sure his field does not work on Shemitah. It's a plowed field. But why? Why does Beisel allow it? Because it could be you're just going to leave it and not plant it at all. Therefore, says Beisel, there's no problem. So if la Ravashi, 1 second. Anytime that it is not a tzivoy, then it's going to be shari. For a kelim, they know the mitzvah shvi says kelim b'shvius. There's no halacha that one's kelim have to not work on Shemitah utinan, and yet we learned in a Mishnah. Elu hein kelim she'inadem rashi l'mankam b'shvius. The following they cannot sell. Hamachrish plowshare v'chol kilehol the yoke v'mazrev adaker. Says the Brayso, all these items cannot be sold on Shemitah. Ella Amar Ravashi. So says the Gemara, you're right. Rather, it comes on Ravashi, and he gives a different reason why we have to be worried about Lifnei Iva over here. Any time that we have a good assumption we're allowed. And even though he is commanded that his property doesn't work, if there's nothing to be tailored on, so it's middle level. If there is what to rely upon, to basic on, then you are allowed. Says the Gemara, Rabba Zavin, Ahucha Mara. Rabba sold a donkey, Rabba sold the Yisrael Chashid, Limkar Lakum. Rabba sold to a Yid who was suspected of selling to Goyim. What do you want? I'm selling it to a Yid, why do I have to be worried? But he responded, we know that Yid goes and sells to Goyim. Says the Rabbi, La'akum kamazavin, Yisrael kamazavin. Does he only sell to Goyim? Of course not. And therefore, since it's a suffix, we don't have to be concerned. Eisvei asked the Gemara further about Shanagulim Karbei Madaka Likutim, Moichrin, Shalim Karin, Moichrin, Maitai, Moile Misham de Chashidi Aravia, Michashidi, Arikhash Vatani, and Mamidim Behemba Bavadakas. As we started with today's Shalakum, Zacharim, Zacharim, Eitzel Zacharim, the Keva, and the Kevais. Vein Zarach Laimar, the Keva, the Zacharim, Eitzel, the Kevais. We see that we're not concerned, we see that we are concerned, Vein Meiser Behemba, the Raya Shalahan, Vein Miyachad and Imayim, Vein Meiser Tina, Lamdai, Sefer, Lamdai on this. Ava, what do you ask to do? Ma'amidim Behemba, Bedagashal Kutim, Zacharim, Eitzel, the Kevais, and the Keva, the Zacharim. By the kutim it's allowed, and keep it in the kevais. And Alma, what do we see? We see when it comes to the kutim, loy chayshidi. So ask the Gemara, we see the kutim are not chayshin. Yeah, what do we see? We see that everything depends on minhag, said our Mishnah. But why is that true? Which would therefore indicate that it would be a problem selling to the kutim. But we see over here not. V'oitanya, and another kasha to Rabbah. Ein meichon lahem lo zayin lo klei zayin v'mashchizin lahem as a zayin. You can't sharpen their weapons. Ein meichon lahem lo sadim lo kolorin lo kabalin lo shalshal shal barzel. Different weapons. You're not allowed to sell them. Echad akav echad kuti. My time. Eating the chashida shichas tamim yichshidi. So clearly we're not chaysh they're going to kill us because we're miyach with them. Elam misham das the zavuni lak we did sell to Avodah Zarah. Chidema kuti lavid tshuva Yisrael lavid tshuva. Says the Gemara. I don't understand. Maybe you'll tell me that you know what the concern is, that a kuti does not do tshuva, and therefore we have to be chaysh to sell to Avodah Zarah but not yidin. Ve'amar Rav Nachman Amrav Rabua Kedarish Amru. Also, limkar la'akum. Kachos limkar Yisrael. It's the same level. Achos limkar la'akum. Right, but so says the Gemara. Rabba ran after the one who bought it. Tzlasa parsi. Vigadi amri. Parsa bechalam. A parsa in sand. V'loi adrachei. But he did not. He was not able to. We see how important he felt that it was to try to buy it back. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmei.